There is a row of dead perennials sitting on the discount table at every American garden center in July. They looked perfect in May. You brought them home, planted them with care, watered them through the heat. They died anyway. The garden center will sell you a new flat next spring. The way out is a short list. 12 perennials that come back every year, that do not need replacing, that do not need babying, and that fill a bed the way the catalog photograph promises, but never delivers. Plant these once, and the garden builds itself. The one at number 1 is the plant my grandmother planted in 1928, and that her great-granddaughter is still cutting flowers from this summer. The one at number 9 quietly spreads to fill every empty space you forget to weed. Number 12, Hosta Sum and Substance, the giant chartreuse hosta that reaches 3 feet across and 4 feet tall, and that single-handedly does the entire job of filling a shaded, north-facing bed. The reason Sum and Substance is at the bottom of the list, and on the list at all, is that hostas in general are reliable. And one hosta in particular is more reliable than every other variety. The leaves on Sum and Substance are noticeably thicker than the standard blue or green hosta varieties, which means the slugs that turn a typical hosta into Swiss cheese by August cannot get through this leaf. The plant looks the same in mid-September as it did in mid-June. Plant Sum and Substance. Once in dappled morning shade, water it through the first summer, and walk away. By year 3, it is the size of a small car. By year 7, it is the focal point of the shaded bed and the plant every visitor asks about by name. By year 20, it is exactly the same plant, doing exactly the same job, with no division and no replanting required. The hosta in your grandmother's garden was almost certainly a generic green variety she divided every 5 years. The 30 years since have produced better cultivars. Sum and Substance is the upgrade your grandmother would have planted if she had been given the choice. One practical note, the plant is huge. Give it 4 feet of clear space on every side when you set it in the ground, because that is what year 7 looks like. Do not crowd it against a foundation shrub or a smaller hosta. The chartreuse foliage against a dark shade backdrop is the entire visual point of the plant. Number 11, Daylily Happy Returns, the compact yellow daylily that reblooms from June through frost without a single deadheading conversation. I am going to say something here that some of you will disagree with. Daylily as a category is excellent. Stelladoro daylily, the 18-inch yellow daylily, planted in front of every commercial building in America since 1980, is the wrong daylily. Stella was patent protected for 2 decades, and the chain garden centers pushed her by the pallet, which is why every front foundation bed in America looks like every other front foundation bed. Happy Returns is the daylily Stella should have been. Same 18-inch height, same yellow color, same rebloom habit, slightly softer yellow, slightly more open flower form, no patent, and no chain marketing campaign attached. Plant Happy Returns at the front of a sunny bed in groups of 3, water for the first summer, and the plant is permanent. By year 5, it is a continuous yellow ribbon that blooms from late June through October. By year 15, it is still the same continuous ribbon, no division required. The chain garden centers still sell Stelladoro because the supply chain is built around it. The smart gardener walks past the Stella display and asks the staff if they have Happy Returns in stock. Most stock it. Most also discount it because nobody recognizes the name. Number 10, Salvia caradonna, the 2-foot dark-stemmed perennial salvia with the spires of deep violet flowers that bloom from late May through late July, and then again lightly in September after a deadheading. Caradonna is the cultivar to ask for by name because the dark, almost black flower stem is the visual signature that separates her from the older Maynite selection most American garden centers default to. Maynite flops in heavy summer rain. Caradonna stays upright. The dark stems contrast against the violet flowers in a way that reads as architectural in a perennial bed. Plant Caradonna in full sun in any reasonably drained soil. The plant tolerates drought once established, attracts bumblebees and hummingbird moths from May through July, and does not require staking, fertilizing, or any seasonal maintenance beyond a hard cutback after the first flush of bloom to encourage the second flush. A clump of caradonna, planted in 2016, I think it was that summer, give or take a year, at the front of my long border, still produces the same volume of flowers 9 seasons later. No division, no replanting, no supplemental water past the first year. The plant just performs. Number 9. Catmint Walker's Low, the lavender blue cloud of small flowers that blooms continuously from late May through September, and that quietly spreads to fill every empty space you forget to weed. This is the plant in the hook tease. 5 months of continuous bloom in an American garden is a claim almost no perennial can make honestly. Walker's Low makes it. The plant produces wave after wave of pale lavender blue flowers, attracts every native bee in the neighborhood, repels deer and rabbits, and grows in any reasonably sunny spot with no supplemental anything past the first establishment summer. The spreading habit is real. A single 1-gallon catmint planted at the front of a bed in spring will be a 2-foot wide cloud by autumn. By year 3, it will be 4 feet wide. The spread is by clump expansion, not by underground runners or aggressive seeding, which means the plant fills the space you want it to fill and does not invade the neighboring perennials the way mint or pennyroyal or houtuinia would. The sterile cultivar Junior Walker exists for gardeners who do not want any self-seeding at all. Plant either. Both work. The hummingbirds and the bumblebees will not care which one you chose. Roll call in the comments. Which of these first 4 is planted in your bed right now, and what U.S. state are you gardening in? The pattern across the country tells me which cultivars the chain garden centers are actually stocking regionally, and which named perennials are missing from the shelves where you live. Number 8. Sedum matrona, the 2-foot upright stone crop with the purple-tinged stems and the dusty rose flowers that open in late August and stay coloring the bed through hard frost. I want to be honest about something. For 30 years, the standard recommendation for upright sedum in an American garden was Autumn Joy. Autumn Joy splits open in the middle by year 5 or 6. That picture-perfect mound becomes a hollow ring with a dead center that the gardener either cuts down hard every spring or replaces. Matrona does not split. The purple-tinged stems are sturdier. The clump holds its shape for 15 years and counting. If you have Autumn Joy in your bed and you have already watched it split, dig it up this fall and replace it with Matrona. The bed will look identical from a distance and will look correct for the next decade and a half instead of just 3 more seasons. Sedum in any form needs full sun, lean soil, and almost no water. The plant evolved on Mediterranean cliff faces. It does not want what the magazine tells you a perennial wants. Rich soil and consistent water make it floppy. Lean, dry soil makes it perfect. The plant knows what it wants. The gardener just needs to listen instead of coddle. Number 7. Black-eyed Susan, American Gold Rush, the 2-foot gold flowering native that blooms nonstop from late June through hard frost and that genuinely resists the leaf spot disease that destroys older Black-eyed Susan varieties. Most American homeowners still default to Goldsturm when they buy Black-eyed Susan because Goldsturm is what every chain garden center stocks. Goldsturm gets septoria leaf spot. By August, the foliage is covered in brown blotches and the lower leaves are falling. The flowers keep coming, but the plant looks ugly from below. American Gold Rush was bred specifically for leaf spot resistance, and it works. The foliage stays clean from June through October. The flowers are slightly smaller and more numerous than Goldsturm, which gives the plant a denser, fuller appearance through the entire bloom season. Pollinators visit the same as any Black-eyed Susan. Goldfinches eat the seed heads through winter. Plant American Gold Rush in full sun in any soil. The plant tolerates drought, ignores summer heat, and self-cleans the spent flowers without intervention. By year 3, the clump is a dense fountain of gold the entire neighborhood notices. Pair American Gold Rush with a taller ornamental grass behind it, little blue stem, prairie drop seed, panicum north wind, and the front of border composition builds itself. The gold flowers against the fine textured grass reads as a formal border with almost no effort. That is the kind of design the magazine photographs charge you $1,200 a bed for. 2 plants, $60. Done. Number 6. Echinacea purpurea, the species coneflower, not the fancy orange hybrids. I have said this in other videos, and I will say it again here because the lesson is genuinely the most important one in perennial gardening. The fancy hybrid coneflowers, hot papaya, Cheyenne spirit, tomato soup, every orange and red and yellow color a coneflower never naturally was, do not live 3 winters. The Mount Cuba Center trial documented this. Most of the magazine cover coneflowers in American gardens are replaced every other year. The species Echinacea purpurea, the plain pink-purple American native, lives 20 years and beyond in the same spot, attracts every pollinator the breeding program ever named on a tag, and self-seeds gently to fill in around the original clump. Goldfinches strip the seed heads through winter. The dried stems and seed heads provide winter structure in the bed when nothing else is doing anything. Pay $9 for a species purpurea coneflower at a real garden center this season. Skip the $18 hot papaya display. The species is the plant that does the job. Number 5. Geranium roseanne. The blue hardy perennial geranium that the Perennial Plant Association named Plant of the Year in 2008, and that has held the title of most recommended hardy geranium in the United States ever since. Roseanne blooms from May through October in most of America. 5 months of small periwinkle blue flowers with no deadheading and no decline in a sprawling mound that fills the front of a perennial bed and weaves itself gently among the taller plants behind it. The plant does not invade. The plant does not flop. The plant does not stop blooming. This is the perennial that most American gardeners over 50 have never heard of, even though it has been the single most recommended low-maintenance, hardy geranium in the country for nearly 2 decades. The chain garden centers carry it intermittently. The name nurseries sell it for $12 to $14 per gallon, and it is worth every dollar. Plant roseanne in full sun to part shade, in any reasonably drained soil, water for the first summer, then watch it perform for the next 15 years. I planted my first roseanne somewhere around 2015, expecting a competent hardy geranium and getting a 15-year commitment I did not know I was signing. That original clump is still at the front of the border. It has bloomed continuously from late May through the first frost every single year. No division, no replanting. The plant just does its job with something close to affection for the gardener. Quick word before number 4. There is more practical perennial garden design than fits in any one video. I gathered 40 years of it into a book at henrysgardensecrets.com. I will not bring it up again. Now to number 4, Amsonia hubrichti, the native blue star perennial that Mount Cuba documented and that the Perennial Plant Association named Plant of the Year in 2011. Almost no American homeowner asks for Amsonia hubrichti by name. Almost no chain garden center stocks it. The plant has been the best-kept secret in low-maintenance perennial gardening for 15 years. What it does: late April through late May, soft sky blue star-shaped flowers cover the entire mound. The fine textured foliage stays clean and bright green from June through September. Then, in October, the entire plant turns a clear, bright gold that reads from 100 feet away. 2 genuine seasons of dramatic show from a single perennial that requires 0 maintenance, 0 supplemental water past the first year, and 0 deer browse because deer will not touch it. The plant is a native of the Ouachita Mountains in Arkansas. The chain garden centers do not stock it because no marketing department ever named it the perennial of the season. The Perennial Plant Association named it for a reason. Plant Amsonia hubrichti in full sun to part shade in any soil. The clump reaches 3 feet tall and 3 feet wide and stays there for 2 decades. The first time the fall color hits, you will replant the half of the bed nobody told you about. Hit subscribe. 40 years of trial garden notes in plain English, written for gardeners who are tired of magazine advice that does not match the yard they actually own. New videos drop every couple of days. The top 3 are the ones that outlive the gardener. The first 9 on this list keep the bed alive and beautiful through a single season. The last 3 keep the bed alive and beautiful through your gardening lifetime, your daughter's gardening lifetime, and your granddaughter's. There is a real difference between a plant that fills a hole this summer and a plant that builds the bones of a garden for 50 years. 3 left, and the last one is the plant my grandmother put in the ground before the Great Depression. Number 3. Garden Phlox Jana. The 4-foot-tall garden phlox with lavender pink flower panicles and the highest mildew resistance the Mount Cuba Center has ever recorded, named Perennial Plant of the Year in 2024. Garden phlox is the perennial that scared me the worst in my first 20 years of gardening because the older unnamed varieties get powdery mildew by mid-July and look like a fire moved through them by August. I had a row of unnamed phlox along the south side of my house somewhere around 2004 that turned to bare sticks by late July and that I dug out the following spring. The bed was empty for a year while I tried to figure out what to do instead. The answer is Jana. The cultivar holds the highest mildew resistance score in any Mount Cuba phlox trial. The foliage stays clean from June through October. The lavender pink flower clusters are smaller and more numerous than the larger panicles of David, which means the plant attracts more butterflies and hummingbirds per square foot than any other phlox cultivar in production. Plant Gianna in full sun in average soil. Water for the first summer. The plant returns wider and fuller every year for at least 15 years with no division required. The bed smells like summer evenings the entire bloom season. Number 2. Baptisia, the 4-foot-tall blue indigo perennial that the Perennial Plant Association named Plant of the Year in 2010, and that lives in the same spot for 25 years without any care at all. Baptisia is the closest thing in American gardening to a perennial that the gardener can plant and forget about for a quarter century. The plant is a native prairie species. The taproot grows deep, 8 to 10 feet within a few years, and the plant becomes a permanent fixture of the bed that no drought, no heat wave, no deer, no insect, and no fungal disease has any meaningful effect on. The blue spires that bloom in late May look almost identical to a lupine. Unlike lupines, which die in most American climates within 2 or 3 years, Baptisia keeps going. The flower stalks become decorative black seed pods that rattle in autumn wind and that goldfinches strip in winter. The foliage stays clean blue-green through the entire growing season. 2 practical notes. The plant takes 3 years to settle in. First summer, small. Second summer, slightly larger. Third summer, suddenly a shrub. From year 3 through year 25, it is the permanent anchor of the bed. The second note, once planted, do not try to move it. The taproot is unmovable after year 2. Baptisia decides where she lives. The gardener just gets to pick the address the first time. If somebody in your gardening life has been replacing the same perennials at the garden center every spring for 20 years, send this video to them. That is the entire favor. That one share could end the cycle for the gardener who has been stuck in it the longest. Number 1. Peony. The plant my grandmother planted along the side of her house in 1928, and that her great-granddaughter is still cutting flowers from in 2026. The peony, in any American garden, is the perennial that outlives every plant on this list, every plant in your house, and every owner of your property. Properly planted at the correct depth, and that detail matters, a peony lives 100 years and beyond in the same spot. No division, no replanting, no fertilizing past the 3rd year, no pest treatment. The plant simply does its job every May through June for a century. My grandmother's peony, the one in her side yard from 1928, has produced fragrant pink double flowers every single spring for 98 consecutive seasons. The plant survived 2 world wars, the Great Depression, 3 replants of the surrounding bed, the death of my grandmother in 1976, the sale of the house, and 2 new owners. It is still there. It is still blooming. My granddaughter cut a vase full this past May. Plant a peony once at the correct depth, 2 inches below the soil surface, no deeper. Pay attention to that detail. Then walk away for the next century. 12 perennials that come back forever: hosta, daylily, salvia, catmint, sedum, black-eyed Susan, coneflower, geranium roseanne, amsonia, garden phlox, Jana, baptisia, and the peony that outlives the gardener. Drop a comment with which of the 12 is already in your garden and which one you are adding this year. I read every one.